Red Bull's rivals raise concerns over the team's suspicious development testing, Haas set to announce lineup next week, and Max Verstappen set to take engine penalty soon. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur has raised his eyebrows at Red Bull, carrying out a test with Max Verstappen at Imola before flying to Barcelona. It emerged during the Spanish Grand Prix weekend that Red Bull had carried out a day of testing with Max Verstappen at Imola immediately prior to heading out to the Spanish Grand Prix. Red Bull's test was carried out with the 2022 RB18, with Verstappen at the wheel, as the team made use of a regulation that allows for the testing of previous cars, TPC. The regulations allow teams to carry out private testing with a car at least 2 years old, running in a specification used at a Grand Prix during that season, to be tested, using tires specifically designed by Pirelli for such outings. TPC is frequently used by teams to allow junior drivers a chance to get a feel for a contemporary F1 car without sacrificing any valuable official testing time, and falls outside the requirements for handing over FP1 sessions to junior drivers. For instance, Kimi Antonelli has been set loose recently in the Mercedes W13, while Alpine confirmed on Monday that Mick Schumacher and Jack Doohan will both carry out a test with the A522 at Paul Ricard in early July. While it's not unusual for the teams to occasionally hand over a car to a current driver for refreshing themselves, particularly after a break like returning after Christmas, a mid-season test for a driver right in the heart of a championship campaign is a little more unusual. While Red Bull didn't publicize the test in the same way many do for their TPC running, leading to many dubbing it a secret test, the rules do allow all the current drivers to thrash around in a 2-year-old car should they feel like it. The regulations also don't demand the test be made public, although the FIA would be in full knowledge of all circumstances and parameters. But the inability to carry out any development work with TPC events doesn't mean the test hasn't caught the attention of Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur, who labeled the outing as being clearly about development as he spoke to media, including PlanetF1.com, following the Spanish Grand Prix. "Over the season, I think we will do probably a bit less than 10, he said, when asked about Ferrari's plans for TPC over the season. But you can't differentiate on these. There's TPC that you could do with your racing drivers, and these, for me, it's more development than something else when you do a TPC 1 week before." Making it clear he had no issues with the Red Bull test, Vasseur said, "I'm not complaining about them, and they are in the regulations, and it's completely okay. It's more development than something else. It's not to give mileage to Max between Barcelona and Austria, SIC, that Tuesday, you do nothing but go along to Imola." Vasseur suggested that TPC regulations need tightening in order to differentiate between such a test with a current driver and one where it's giving an opportunity to a junior. It's clearly development, and what you could do with the young drivers that this permits another approach. It's giving them the opportunity to sometimes to do mileage for the simulator and so to develop them. It's another approach, he said. "I think if we have to police it, we will have to split the two aspects. The day we are doing with our drivers, and the days that we are doing with the non-racing drivers." With Red Bull unable to use the test for the development or testing of any components or setups that may have been learned over the time period since running the RB18 in a Grand Prix, what development could Vasseur be referring to? As Red Bull's chief engineer Paul Monahan explained, the test gave Verstappen a reference on how a car, with which he largely dominated, handled and felt around Imola, not long after scraping across the line to win with the 2024 RB20. With Red Bull's struggles riding curbs becoming more evident as the rest of the pack closes up, Monahan explained the TPC allowed Verstappen to get a feel on whether the issue has improved or gotten worse since those days. "We really tried to give Max a reference from a previous car," Monahan explained on Friday morning at Imola. "When you're trying to assess the strengths and weaknesses of a current car, his reference is the current car, and it's in previous years we've had this, we've had that." "But have we really? Because we haven't run them at the same time. So in taking that car out, we tried to give Max a reference to judge it from, and he's been able to give us feedback from that." Fully transparent about the benefits Red Bull got out of carrying out the test, a facility open to all the teams, Monahan said the data gathered would allow the Milton Keynes-based squad to get a firmer handle on the extent of the problem nowadays, relative to when the issue seemed less serious. "That feedback won't change as such, we just give him a different reference," said Monahan. The strengths and weaknesses of the cars or how we perceive it, we can obviously judge relative to our opposition. But we blend that with his comments, check those comments, and we say, okay, are we good? Are we bad? We can look in the data, see if it's valid to say we're better or worse than some people. What's his perception? Why is he saying it? And then what on earth do we do about it? Toto Wolff has zero tolerance for keyboard cowards who tried to create discord within Mercedes by claiming the team was sabotaging Lewis Hamilton. Losing the early season battles to George Russell, a mass email was sent to members of the F1 community by someone claiming to be working at Mercedes who wrote of the systemic sabotage of Hamilton. That was just the tip of the iceberg in what was alleged in the email. Wolff then revealed on the Friday of the Spanish Grand Prix that the police were investigating the matter, with the team boss telling the media, including PlanetF1.com, that it is upsetting, particularly when there is somebody talking about death and all these things. So, on this particular one, I have instructed to go full force. We have the police inquiring. We are researching the IP address. We are researching the phone. All of that. Online abuse in that way needs to stop. It is a stance that he reiterated during an interview with DAZN, where he called the keyboard trolls cowards. I have zero respect for the cowards that hide behind a screen and set up fake Instagram accounts and then tell us that we are sabotaging Lewis, he said. Why would we sabotage a driver that's been with us for 12 years and is part of the family and will always be a Mercedes guy even though he leaves Mercedes? And we want his points for the Constructors' Championship. Zero tolerance and zero respect. That's not going to change. Hamilton shrugged off the off-track drama to secure his first podium result of this season with a P3 in Sunday's Grand Prix as he crossed the line ahead of Russell. It was only the third time this season that Hamilton has beaten Russell in a Grand Prix, the 7-time world champion having also out-qualified him to bring that stat to 2.8. With Lewis, he wears his heart on his sleeve, as you say, said Wolff of the 39-year-old's troubles. You can see his emotions, positive or negative. And in a few races, he wasn't in a good place because the performance wasn't there, and we want to celebrate our last year with him. That's our main target. It is a target Mercedes are edging towards, as their latest upgrades, headlined by a new front wing, have been a notable step forward. We are going for every millisecond, said the team boss. But if you look at the probability of us winning, the championship is clearly far off. But we have two drivers that are capable of winning points, and they are very much at the top of their game. And who knows? What was frustrating was that our best people couldn't figure out what was happening. But we believe in the system. I believe in the people, and even if you're being knocked down, you stand up. Taking his fourth and final internal combustion engine of the season in Spain, Max Verstappen is facing more bad news with a report Honda are likely to confirm his Canadian GP engine cannot be salvaged. For this year's championship, the drivers all have 4 internal combustion engines, turbochargers, MGU-H, and MGU-Ks. Verstappen had the 4th of each installed at the Spanish Grand Prix. Taking one more of any of those parts would trigger an automatic grid penalty, and it's a reality that Verstappen is facing. According to Motorsport.com, although Honda are still inspecting the engine that was removed from his RB20 after an issue in Friday's second practice in Montreal, it is becoming increasingly likely that it will be scrapped from his pool of engine parts. Verstappen was forced to return to the pits after just laps in FP2 in Montreal and called for Red Bull to get the fans, I smell a bit of smoke. His stoppage was caused by a suspected energy recovery system problem, with the Dutchman voicing his concerns, what kind of implications that will have for this weekend or the rest of the year. Although it was an electrical issue, the report claims there are concerns that it caused wider damage to the rest of the power unit and therefore won't be returned to Verstappen's pool for the remainder of the season. The problem in Canada meant he also moved on to his 4th ice for the season in Spain, along with various other engine parts, putting him on the limit for 4 components. Team boss Christian Horner admits Verstappen won't see out the next 14 races without an engine grid penalty. We'd have to see how it plays out over the coming races, but I think it's inevitable that we'll take the next engine at some point, he said. Engine penalties could play a role in what is shaping up to be a closer-than-expected championship. Although Verstappen has 7 wins and a 69-point advantage, 2 of his victories were close calls with Lando Norris on his rear wing at the line. Verstappen admits it will come down to development and who can extract more performance from their car. I think at the moment we just need to try and find that little bit more to comfortably win, he said. Because I think if you look at our last few wins, it's been more about just being there at the right moment, at the right time, making the right calls and being quite strong as a team. I always knew that it was going to be very close, he added. And McLaren is just doing a really, really good job. They have brought a lot of good updates to their car, and it really just seems to work. From our side, we have brought things to the car, but probably not as much lap time as what others have been bringing to their car. So now it's up to us to try and find a bit more, try to get that little jump ahead again. Because I think clearly today we just lacked a bit of that outright pace, but also just when we had to push, we just couldn't look after the tires like Lando, for example, could. So these kind of things are quite crucial on most of the tracks where you have a bit of DG. So yeah, we need to try and be better on that. Mercedes could wait until November to name Lewis Hamilton's replacement with Toto Wolff, still undecided on Kimi Antonelli, seemingly giving up Max Verstappen after revealing they are not currently in talks over a Mercedes race seat. It's Antonelli who is reportedly leading the running to sit in the second Mercedes alongside George Russell. But although there has been a lot of talk about the 17-year-old Italian, Antonelli is still adjusting to Formula 2 after skipping Formula 3. Scoring 48 points with Prema to put him 9th in the drivers' standings, he's chasing a first podium having claimed a hat-trick of P4s. But talked up as the future of Mercedes, the longtime junior could yet be making another big leap next season, with Wolff confirming he is the running to replace Hamilton. I would very much like to see him in Formula 1 next year, he told DAZN. Whether that's with us or another team or as a test driver, I don't know yet. Although Wolff is still in talks with Antonelli, the team boss told the media, including PlanetF1.com, in Spain that there are no talks taking place with Verstappen at present. But that doesn't mean there won't be in the future. At a time when Red Bull are still winning races and championships, the team boss says it's up to Mercedes to design a good car or the best car. Drivers will want to drive in that car. That has to be our main focus. In the brutal reality of the sport, there is no place for dreams. But that doesn't mean the dream isn't lingering, even if it is in the background. Asked about Carlos Sainz, who was dropped by Ferrari in favor of signing Hamilton, Wolff ruled out a straight swap as he wants a new path forward for Mercedes. A path that could still include Verstappen. We want to go in a completely new generation. If it is with Kimi or see what Max does, he said. I didn't want to have Carlos wait anymore. I think we may take a decision in November. Carlos is a race winner in Ferrari, but it all came down to the decision that Ferrari said, we want to have Lewis Hamilton in the car for next year. As for his soon-to-be former driver Hamilton, Wolff had only words of praise for the 7-time Grand Prix winner who he called the most iconic Formula 1 driver. We've won so many races and titles with him. We will always have him close to our hearts. He also said it's going to take him a moment getting used to seeing the Briton in red. It will be a good photo for the first months. Everybody has to get used to see him in red. But Ferrari is Ferrari, he added. A report has claimed Haas are set to announce the signing of Oliver Bearman in the run-up to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. The young Brit has been a favorite to replace Nico Hülkenberg at the team since impressing in his debut performance for Ferrari in Saudi Arabia, with 6 FP1 sessions having already been planned in for Haas as a sign of the team's potential interest in the 19-year-old. A report from Racing News 365 claims Haas are set to announce Bearman as their first driver on the F1 2025 grid in the build-up to his home race at Silverstone next week, with the teenager set to get back behind the wheel of the VF24 for his next scheduled FP1 session with the team. When asked if his home race would be an ideal place for his first Formula 1 contract to be announced, Bearman told media including PlanetF1.com in Barcelona, "That's not in my hands." But looking ahead to his home race in general, the Ferrari Junior, who enjoyed 2 FP1 appearances with Haas last season before his Formula 1 bow with the Scuderia in Jeddah earlier this year, is ready for what the weekend might hold. Silverstone is going to be crazy for sure. There's a lot of things happening, he added. Even last year it was busy, but as well as the fact I'm doing FP1, there are a lot more things happening behind the scenes, a lot of fun appearances and stuff. It's going to be a busy weekend, but I'm so excited for my home race. I really can't wait. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. With Haas and Ferrari putting Bearman through plenty of preparation for what currently looks to be a step up to Formula 1 next season, Bearman expanded further on what he is looking to do better as he builds his career further. My technical knowledge is something I want to improve for F1, because the complexity of the car is much higher than F2, he explained. That's something that can really help the engineers and start to build a relationship with them on that side of things. So I want to work on that as well as physically, because F1 is a big step in terms of physicality. So I've been working really hard in the gym, behind the scenes, because even these FP1 sessions, you feel the physicality of the F1 car, and I want to be ready. I don't want that to be limiting me. Finally, the fact that in F1 you can't afford to not be on point, especially at the moment, how close everyone is. You can't afford to have a day off, you can't afford to have a bad day at the office, so I'm really trying to work on my mental game. Thanks for supporting the channel, everyone. I highly appreciate it.